So earlier today I wanted to do some lure painting and decided it would be a great time to actually clean my airbrush because I've been neglecting that for the longest time now. So I took my airbrush apart, started to clean the inner parts, and then when it came time to put it back together again, I don't usually do this, but I even took the nozzle out, which ended up being a big mistake because the damn thing broke in half, leaving the other part inside the airbrush. And there's no way in hell I'm gonna be able to take that tiny piece out from the airbrush anymore, so my airbrush is completely useless now. Yippee. Well, luckily, there has been a thing that I wanted to try for the longest time now, and that is to cover a lure with leaves and see if that actually catches anything. So without further ado, let's head out to the forest and gather some leaves. So, since I've hit 30,000 subscribers here on YouTube just very recently, I figured we would go and take a trip down on memory lane to my very first YouTube video that I posted on this site 9 years ago. And that was a swim test video of a lure that looks very similar to the one that I'm doing right now. And I gotta say, it's been really awesome to see the channel growing now that I've actually put some effort into these videos for the past 3 years. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you who have subscribed to my channel and who have kept supporting what I do here. You guys are awesome. Whenever I use a jigsaw, I usually leave a little bit of extra wood on the baits, which is then easy to take care of with a rasp or a belt sander, if you happen to have one. Currently I don't have one, but maybe in the future I will. Now that the lure is still basically a block of wood, I'm just going to mark where I need to drill holes for the hook and line ties, which are going to be screw eyes. Before drilling, I'm just going to make a small indentation with my knife to make sure that the drill bit is not going to be wandering off. Usually at this point I would use a router to chamfer the edges, but since mine is broken, I'm just going to use my multi-tool. I'm going to finish off the rounding of the edges with sandpaper, and this is grit 60. And later on I'm gonna move on to grit 100, and I think that's fine enough for a bait like this. Now that I'm pretty much done with the shaping of the bait, I'm just going to seal the wood with some Cap Coatings lure varnish. So this is going to be a sinking lure, so I need to melt some lead to make some lead weights. At this point I feel like it's necessary to put forth a word of warning when it comes to working with lead. I'm sure many of you know that handling lead is pretty safe, or relatively safe, because lead doesn't actually absorb through the skin very easily. But things are very different when lead starts to melt. and the fumes themselves can be quite dangerous, so definitely work in a well ventilated area and wear a respirator. I for one don't want to have brain damage and kidney failure by the time I'm 40. So I've measured two 15-gram lead bars that I've placed on the bait with some rubber bands, and I've tried to have them as far away from each other as I possibly can and still have a level sink. This sort of weight placement usually results in a really long glide, which is exactly what I'm looking for in this bait. If you want to have a more in-depth explanation on how to do this stuff, I have a dedicated video on my channel regarding it. When it comes to drilling holes, it's a pretty straightforward process. You drill a hole, and boom, you're done. However, when it comes to weight placement and drilling the weight holes, you should make sure that you don't drill too deeply, because that might result in a really poor action on the bait. So definitely try to have as much mass on the bottom of the bait as you possibly can. That's what I usually always try to do anyways. Now that the holes are done, I'm just going to cover them up with some plastic putty. Of course, you could use other methods too, like mixing wood dust with wood glue, or you could do the marling baits thing and use copious amounts of super glue and baking soda. Now I'm just going to sand the weight holes flush, and we're ready to do some fine leaf work. Before I started gluing anything in, I did this kind of like a mock-up thing where I placed all of the leaves on the bait and see how I want them to be on the lure, the different colors and all of those things. I swap them back and forth and just see what looks best. But my original idea was that I wanted to do this kind of like a baitfish imitation thing where I would carve the leaves to resemble gill plates, mouth, maybe a fin even. But then I got thinking that I actually like this kind of like an abstract look a little bit more. And I gotta say the serrated edges of these leaves look kind of cool. So I just decided to go with that. And I'm gonna start with rowan or mountain ash. And then I'm gonna move on to different birch leaves of varying stages of decay. And the glue that I use here is 5-minute epoxy. I did try that other glue that I used with the feather baits that I made early in the summer, but that ended up turning the leaves completely brown, and we definitely can't have that. So epoxy is the best way to go here if you ever want to try this on your own. I thought that the weight holes look quite ugly and they stand out, and not in a good way, so I wanted to cover them up. So I used some willow leaves to do the job. While I was doing that mock-up earlier, I started to notice that this bait would look pretty close to the legendary parrot color. So I wanted to use something that's really green. So obviously the ferns that I gathered from the forest fit the bill perfectly. So I used a couple of those for the back. Since I haven't done anything like this before, I wanted to make sure that the colors on the leaves won't fade. So as soon as I was done, I dipped the bait into clear coat a couple of times. Well, actually more than a couple of times, more like 10 to 15 times. Now that I'm waiting for the last layers of clear coat to cure, I'm going to be using these hollow punches to punch out some eyes for me. And I'm going to be using this beautiful red maple leaf, and for the inner part or the iris I'm going to be using a really faded willow leaf, which is probably almost rotten at this point. At this point I've sanded the clear coat and I'm ready to glue on my eyes. And like before, I'm using 5-minute epoxy to do the job. After the eyes, I put 3 more layers of clear coat on the bait. And now I'm ready to put on the screw eyes, or glue them on rather. And since this is kind of like a special bait, I decided to use cup washers to make the overall look a little bit more prestigious. I don't know. I just feel like using these because I don't really use them that often. So I decided, yeah, what the heck, let's just go for it. Alright guys, I think we're gonna start with a swim test. See how this thing swims. And of course untangled. Nice. Pretty windy out here today, so hopefully I'm gonna be able to find some active fish. But at least judging from the action of the bait, think we have a pretty good chance, but you never know. Alright, we got the first fish of the day on, and it's really small and it's barely hooked too, but I'm really happy that I actually caught oh, that was a perfect release. Anyways, let's hope we're gonna get something bigger. That was barely like 40 centimeters long. This area is usually pretty good in the fall time. I don't know what it is about this place, but it seems to like attract pike a lot. I think probably a good ambush point. And we have another fish on. This one is a bit bigger, still pretty small. But it is a fish. Nice. Let's hope they get a bit bigger than this. This is a lean guy too. Bunch of leeches on his back. Go get fatter. Fish on. And I haven't seen the pike yet, but seems like it's a bit bigger than the last one I caught. So at least that's an upgrade. Okay, let's use the jaw openers for this one. Okay. Nice little pike. Cool colors. Let's hope I get something a bit bigger than that. But it's still fun to catch fish with that bait, nevertheless, so that's cool. There we go. It's a decent pike actually. Biggest one for the day for sure. That's pretty dangerous. Don't go crazy now. Nice. Nice lean pike, full of those leeches. let's try to get a bigger one. It seems like it's pretty hard today, so let's see. Alright, pike on, and this is definitely the biggest one for the day. Whoa. Whoa, 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 whoa. Jesus Christ, this is a strong fish. I think I got it tangled pretty well. Alright, not a bad fish at all. I think it's probably, let's just say 2.5. Yeah, nice fish. Yeah, not a bad pike. And with a leaf lure. Awesome, I think I'm gonna see how long this pike is. Just because I'm curious. 77. Yeah, 77. Yeah, nice fish. Let's put her back. Let's get another one. Jesus Christ, that's not good. Honestly, I gotta say that when I started to work on this bait, I really didn't think that it would work as well as it did. But that just goes to show you that looks is not everything, and it's mostly the action, the shape, and possibly the size as well that attracts the fish. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like the video if you did, subscribe to the channel, blah blah blah, you know what to do, and I'll see you guys in the next one.